Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Alexis, producer of writerviews.com. With me today is David Cain, who is the blogger behind raptitude.com. And I invited David here today because he is very, very good at reader engagement. So, David, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, before we jump too far into the questions, can you give us maybe a brief overview of what Raptitude is and the experience that you offer to the readers?
Raptitude is about the human condition in everyday life, just how people live and why people do what they do. It's a pretty broad topic, but that's it.
Right. I think when somebody first arrives at Raptitude, they see that it's a street level look at the human experience, and I think that's a pretty
Yeah,
cool way of putting it. Um,
yeah.
because certainly you do cover complex topics, but in a way that's accessible to a lot of people. So, questions then. What I said in the introduction was that you're very, very good at reader engagements. We better back that up. Comments. Your posts seem to encourage a lot of them. On the low end, maybe just 30, 40, 50. But there was one post called 40 Belief-Shaking Remarks from a Ruthless Nonconformist that got 342, which is incredible. How do you do it? Where do those come from?
Well, that post in particular, it was my most popular post of all time. Like it went viral, and it's still. I get more views to that post than probably all other posts combined. It's had over 1 million views. So that one just went crazy on StumbleUpon especially, but also Facebook and Twitter. So there's this ongoing conversation all the time. I mean, it's also a controversial post. It's 40, for anyone who hasn't read it, 40 aphorisms from Friedrich Nietzsche, and he says some pretty controversial things. So there's maybe 50, there might be a string of 50 comments in there of just people that I don't even know arguing about this point. You know what I mean? So there's no end to it. It's over 1.5 years old. So that one just kind of went crazy on its own. But the other ones, I have a lot of readers. I have a lot of loyal readers who have been with me for it's been 2.5 years I've been running this blog. And some of them, they know me quite well. So they're more likely to be engaged. They're more likely to want to weigh in on what I have to say, not just because of the topic, but because they know me and they want to bounce things off me.
If I could
And
just
also
interrupt
sometimes,
quickly,
sure.
do they know you because of a relationship you've built with them through the blog, or are they friends and family and people that you otherwise are very close with?
No, people who know me just through the blog. There's a few friends and family members that sometimes comment, but the vast majority is people that I didn't know anyway other than through my blog. But they still send me emails, and they're on my Facebook, and I do consider them my friends now, even though most of them I haven't met in person. And another reason that I get a lot of comments is because sometimes I just ask for them. Recently, I had a post a couple of posts ago, and I just asked people what they thought. And normally I'll get 30 to 50 comments on a typical post, but whenever I ask for them, people like to be asked what they think. So I'll get over 100 comments usually on posts like that.
Right. So I think that last tip is very simple, but maybe a powerful one, and one that
Yeah.
we could all do a little bit more. I do want to dig a little bit deeper though, because yeah, now you have those relationships with the readers. Now they feel like like you said, friendship that maybe helps them relate further to your work and put their comments down. But 2.5 years ago when you started, you didn't have those people. So what happened between start and now that allowed you to build up those relationships?
Well, this is probably the smartest thing I ever did with my blog. The first thing I
All
did
right.
was I found a little group of beginning bloggers, and there was 6 or 7 of us, and we had all just started in the last couple of months. And we formed a Google group where we could just chat about stuff and bounce ideas off each other, and also comment on each other's blogs, and just kind of get a little bit of discussion going. Pieces we liked, we would share with other people, and it just really multiplied what you would have to generate organically with just strangers on the internet. So anyone just beginning blogging, that I think is the most valuable thing you can do, is just get a couple other people who are in the same place, you know, and you get the communication going, and then everyone brings their own little circle in to everyone else's blog, and you get a running start that way for sure.
Right, that sounds like a very good idea, and also many other benefits too, right? Just having a support group, just having somebody that holds you accountable goes a long way too. So,
That's another thing.
yeah,
If you had gone a couple of weeks without posting something, someone would say something. But if you were just on your own, you'd just disappear. You know,
that's
I really wonder if my blog would even exist now if I didn't have that group.
that's right. Because sometimes life does get in the way of our best intentions,
Yeah.
and I kind of expect that you've written a post about that at some point, but we'll see. So the last thing about comments before we move on, and maybe we've already answered this, but it's not just that you get a lot of comments, but it's that you get comments that are deep, thoughtful, insightful. Some of them are almost as long as the posts that you've written.
Yeah.
That's an
Yeah.
exaggeration, right? But the people actually read your work and they actually spent the time to think about it and they actually spent the time to write and try to communicate back to you and the rest of the community. Why?
Well, I think there's two reasons, and the first one is the subject matter. Like a lot of it is surrounds philosophy and really deep, heavy issues. And when somebody wants to say something about them, it takes a lot of words. And the other one is that my posts are not that typical of blog posts. They're usually longer, and they are on those heavier issues. So if somebody who's going to get to the end of one of my blog posts probably has more invested in it kind of than someone who's reading like 350 word uh, posts about the latest thing that happened, you know, celebrity gossip or whatever. I don't mean to like cut down anyone else's topics, but just the nature of my blog, it's longer and heavier and deeper. So I expect people to have more to say when they get to the end of a post like that, maybe.
Right, and eventually I do hope to interview Perez Hilton about how he got so famous on celebrity gossip. So we won't talk too bad about it, but you're right, it
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
very different subject matter, and I expect you're attracting a very different crowd. That actually leads really well into the next set of questions too, which is, for your posts, for what you write about, how do you decide the topics?
Well, what I write about, like I said, it's a very broad, general topic. It's about humanity and how human beings behave in everyday life. So the world is just completely full of inspiration for that. I can read a newspaper and it's full of dozens of topic ideas. I can walk up and down the street, or I can go to the mall like I did the other day and take pictures of people and get inspiration that way. So there's no shortage of ideas as long as I can find an angle on them and find a entertaining way to write about them.
Right. Now, I'm going to ask a little bit later on, I'll ask about some of the mechanics, things like scheduling. But right now, maybe a very simple question for it is, do you go to the mall, you go to the park, you go out into the world and you start thinking and you go, all right, bam, I have to go home and write a post right now? Or, do you sit down in front of the computer every Monday morning and think, all right, these are some of the things that happened in the last week. Now I'm going to decide what to write about.
Uh, it's usually one or the other. Like
Okay.
often, I always carry a little moleskin notepad on me because sometimes you get an idea and you have to write it down. Like I'll pull over my car, do whatever, or jump out of the shower if I have an idea. But also, if it gets towards my self-imposed deadline, I post on Monday mornings now. I will sit down and look through what I've got. I've always got dozens of ideas. It just depends on which one I feel like running with it at any given time. So sometimes I have the post and I just have to jump right into it and write it. And usually I get it mostly done that way. But other times I just sit and now's the time to do it. And I find something I can go with.
Right, absolutely, and dig deeper into those thoughts that you've had. This, not everybody watching this is going to be familiar with raptitude, but when they are, they're going to be better able to appreciate what you've said, which is that there is some pretty deep thoughts, there is some pretty deep philosophy about the human condition, the human experience. One post that came to mind to me, one that I read, was called "What to Do About the World's Suffering." It's a pretty big topic, right? And you talk about empathy and being part of the bigger picture and humanity. Where does that come from? When not the inspiration for the post, but the content that you start to write. Is it just your thoughts and ideas? I don't mean just in a demeaning way, but only. Is it only the thoughts and ideas? Do you do research? Do you look at what other people have written about it before?
Yeah, sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. Like often it will just start with I find maybe an interesting way to relate something that I've been thinking, and I just start writing about it without a clear purpose in mind, and then maybe later I find that it's answering a question that other people might have, or often someone will email me and ask a question like that, like I don't know what to do about this. What would you do? And I'll give them a response, but it'll inspire me to think, what would I do? You know, and it makes me think about things in that way. And often I will do some research and see what other people have said about it, like what famous philosophers have said about it, or just Google it and see what I come up with, and whether I agree with an approach or not. Or there's just so much inspiration around you. So there's so much writing that has been done, and in this day and age, it's accessible all the time. So it's yeah, often it does come down to doing a bit of research. Like it's so easy to do now.
Right.
Yeah.
I think something you just said aligns very well with a note I made here. Because as I was going through the blog, looking at comments, one commenter, this is just a highlight from what she said. It was, I came across your blog and have thoroughly enjoyed my visit. You have a way of putting into words those things that some of us just sense. You know, this idea that that you said, it's this idea that maybe other people are thinking about, that they have questions about. So, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. It goes a long way to be able to relate with people. And this last month, you had a post called, it was called something like 2 Ways of Dealing with Negative People or Negative Emotions. And
Yeah.
maybe that's 2, right? That was solicited by reader questions or... Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, like that was exactly what happened there. Somebody said, "How do you deal with negative people?" And I wrote back, "Well, sometimes I don't do it very well, and when I don't do it very
Yeah.
well, I do. And when I do it well, I'm in a different headspace, and this is what I end up doing." And I realized that it's I do have these 2 ways of dealing with them, and one of them is kind of a stupid way. So I decided to write about both of them. But yeah, that came exactly from a direct reader question. That the title of the post, I think, was exactly how they worded it.
This, I'm going to skew a little bit off of our path of questions here, because one thing I find is that when I write, I end up thinking about the topics more deeply. When you're consciously thinking about X, Y, Z, it seems to go a lot further than the subconscious mind can just on its own. Do you find that raptitude has also meant a lot of personal development for you?
Yeah, for sure. For sure it has. Like sometimes it is about straight up personal development. I do experiments on my blog from time to time where I test out a new habit or something. But also one way that's worked that I didn't expect when I started a blog is once I start writing about something, then I really have to clarify my thoughts about it. I really have to get the right words around it, or else you don't have a coherent blog post. Because a person's thoughts are chaotic. They're crazy. They go on tangents. But when you write it down, it has to be presentable by the time you press publish. So I've had to think, is that what I really think? And if it isn't, then you change it. But it makes you really work it out and really see where it is you stand on things. And that has helped me so much in coming to, decisions about how to live my life. Like I really have to think, should I be living this way? Because if you don't work out the question in words, then it can just remain murky forever. So I've developed a lot in the last 2.5 years, and I think it's very largely due to that I write about these things now.
Right. This is a stream that I actually want to talk a lot about more. So maybe I'll just I'll revert back to where we were talking about the actual writing of the posts, and then we'll dig deeper, especially in the experiments. But another question I had about the posts themselves was post titles, because quite frankly, when I go through your archives, I'm just drawn in, right? I just want to click on things. We've named a couple of them, but to name a couple more, we have how to make trillions of dollars. how I found the secret to happiness while totally naked. I don't want stuff anymore, only things. And there's just something about them that, it's we're talking 6, 7 words, but it just resonates with you really quick. You want to click. Uh, how do you name your posts?
Well, when I first started writing, I was reading Copy Blogger a lot, and everyone who's blogging should know Copy Blogger, but if they don't, it's about how to get people to take action with your words. And the one thing they drill over and over again is the importance of a headline, because on the internet now, there's so much information there. You could read it your whole life and never get even a fraction of it done. So every person who goes on the internet every day looking for something is going to encounter hundreds or thousands of links or things they could potentially read, but they're only going to read a tiny percentage of them. And whether they do read yours or not depends on the words that they see that they can click on or not click on, or if it comes up on Stumble Upon, they can say, well, this is worth my time or it's not worth my time. Like that one that I talked about, 40 belief-shaking remarks from a ruthless nonconformist. People are more likely to click on that, I'm sure, than if I had titled the same post 40 quotes from Nietzsche, which is essentially what it is.
Right.
And there's that decisive moment that happens so many times every day for so many millions of people, and you can leverage that by making sure that you have a headline that you would click on if you saw it.
That's a good point, especially with the 40 belief shaking remarks, because you're right. If you had put his name, maybe not everybody knows. Whereas if you put nonconformist, it seems like in the last year or two it has become a little bit of a buzzword on the internet. So there's a lot of people that see that and think that, oh, actually that's something that I like to read about. Why don't I check it out maybe?
Yeah, like more specifically, this is the way the copywriters say it, is every headline has to say what's in it for me. If I read this post, what's in it for me? If it's a challenge to what someone believes, then they might want to take up that challenge. If it's an offer of something you can improve, then they might want to improve that. Like if you just call it some ramblings about politics or something like that, there's that's a dime a dozen. Why would anyone click on that to the exclusion of so many other interesting things that they might have in their RSS reader or wherever,
Right. So when I do post our conversation today, what you're telling me is that I shouldn't call it the ramblings of David Cain. I'll come up with something a little bit deeper that people are able to draw their benefit from. All right.
Call it whatever you like, but it certainly does make a difference what you call it as a title.
Right. Absolutely. One more question about what you're writing and how you're writing them, which is posting schedule. What I noticed, again, going through the archives, is that 2009, it looked like every month, sort of 7 to 10 posts. Early 2010, 5 to 7. And now, you said Monday morning, right? So it's 3 to 4 posts a month. Why that change? Why that progression?
When I first started, obviously I'd never blogged before, so I just looked up what the standard doctrine was about how often to post. And they said post every day, post 5 to 7 times a week. And it took me so long to figure out all the technical stuff in the blog that when I finally sat down to write, I was shocked at how difficult it can really be, especially if you don't have a lot of experience at it. So I thought, well, maybe I can post every other day. That's what I can do. Every other day I can manage. So I started doing that, and I thought, well, maybe just Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I did that for a while, and it was just too much. Like, my posts are longer than most blog posts. I spend more time on them, as far as I know, than other bloggers tend to. Like, if I was only to spend 4 hours on a blog post, that would be very quick for me. Usually they're about 6 hours or 8 hours I spend on a post. So if you think about doing 3 or 4 posts like that a week, it's just not sustainable. So eventually I dropped to just Mondays and Thursdays. And then I found I was still kind of grasping at things sometimes to get that second post done a week. So I thought, I'll just post once a week, and that way I can make sure it's good, because sometimes if you have a full-time job or whatever like I do, there's so much going on, you just can't get inspired on a regular basis, but certainly within a week you can create something good. So I just settled on once a week after a while.
Right, and I think, to be very fair to you, the topics that you choose, again, are deep thoughts, philosophy, and the posts are long. So to come up with that kind of inspiration and to do consistently well, to do justice for your readers every day, would be a pretty big challenge. So it
Yeah.
seems to me that the less frequent posts probably means higher quality as well.
Yeah, I think that's what it's meant, and I think my writing has improved as I've posted less frequently. But I know that doesn't work for everyone, and I know like a lot of blogs depend on largely on search engine traffic, and of course, if that's the route you're taking, then you want as many pages out there as often as possible because that's what Google prefers. But for me, it's worked this way because posts get shared because they're good for
Right.
mine, not because they're timely or frequent. So it just lends itself to my topic and the way I write, not posting as frequently.
Have you, in the last 2.5 years then that this change happened, did you notice a change in the traffic?
Yeah, it's gone. It's always increased.
Okay, very
Um,
good.
yeah, I don't know if that's strictly because of the posting frequency, because as time goes on, more and more people hear about it, and it just kind of grows naturally once it hits a certain momentum.
Right, organically from people sharing and etc.
Yeah.
Okay, you touched on this a little bit in the last question, but I want to ask how you do manage your time and finances because, all right, you have a full-time job. A post takes 8 hours to write. You know, a man has to sleep as well, unless there's been an experiment about that and you found another way. But, you know, there's only so many hours in the week. How do you manage your time and finances to be able to write for Raptitude?
It hasn't always been easy because I'm kind of a natural procrastinator. I have some bad. My work habits are really not that great, and sometimes it's been a struggle getting posts done. I've moved the posting day around. Like for up until recently, I was posting on Wednesdays, and because of just the way I tend to do things, I would end up writing all night Monday, all night Tuesday after I got home from work, and it was really kind of straining me. So I moved it to Monday. So little managing things like that, just moving things around. But I have a full-time job, so I just have my 5 evenings and weekends, and I have other commitments and things like that. So um, just trying to do it as much ahead of time as I can, despite my natural impulse to do it at the last minute.
To procrastinate?
It's a fine balance, but I think posting now on Monday, it's kind of a more solid habit for me to finish things up on the weekend and have the week kind of to myself to do other things.
Right, and especially be thinking about the post for the next weekend. I think that's probably good advice for others that find themselves procrastinating too, because well, it seems to me that it might be a common trait among
Oh yeah, for
not
sure.
just writers but people. Street level look at the
Yeah,
human experience. We like to procrastinate for some reason.
yeah.
Okay, so let's ask some more mechanical questions then. You've been writing Raptitude for 2.5 years. Have you earned income from it?
Not really, no.
Okay. Do you
I haven't really actively monetized it. Like I've received a few unsolicited donations from readers. I've included a few affiliate links in some older posts that once in a while make a sale, but I haven't ever sat down and carved out a deliberate monetization strategy.
sure, then may I ask why not?
Mainly because with a full-time job, and particularly for half the year, I'm extremely busy with my job. Also, about a year and a half ago, I was traveling all the time, and I didn't want to be spending more time in front of a computer screen at that time. And now, just getting my writing done has been quite a bit. And like I said, I'm not a terribly productive person, with the time that I do have. So it's always seemed like now's not the time to do that. But I'm going to be taking a leave of absence from my work this winter and to have more time to do creative things. So that's going to be the time when I start thinking about that for sure. I've got some big projects that I have right on the horizon that I've started, but haven't had a big stretch of time to really dive into them with confidence. But that's coming. So
So other projects that will be related to Raptitude or
yes,
something else?
no, they'll be related to Raptitude, like longer form writing. Like I'm going to release I don't want to give too much away, but a
Sure.
manifesto, and I'm starting to work in photography into my posting. I'll probably release photo essays and photo collections. So yeah, just until now, it's been enough just maintaining the blog. Um, but I'm ready to expand.
Cool. Well, I'm very much looking forward to see how you expand in this manifesto. That it does sort of bring up a question for me about motivation, though. So 2.5 years, you haven't earned income from the blog. You've expressed yourself as a procrastinator, like so many of us. Where has your motivation come from for the past writing?
Well, I'm like I say, I'm fascinated by people, and I'm in the habit now of writing, and it's become a therapy for me, and it's become a way to express myself. It's a kind of an identity for me now. It's just such a part of my life. I can't not write. Like sometimes I I'll have trouble dragging myself to do the next post or to do this or that, but it can't not be part of my life now. So it's never really been something I would consider giving up or not doing. So the motivation to continue is always there.
Right, very much internal, which I think is the best kind of motivation we've got.
Uh,
All right, more mechanical questions. The most effective method of getting traffic that you've had in the last 2.5 years?
for me, it's just been people sharing my posts. Like uh, one thing you hear everywhere all the time, and I don't disagree with it, is guest posting on bigger blogs than your own is a great way to drive traffic. But I haven't done that in part because it's been enough of a struggle to get my own writing done. Like if one just writing one post for me is like a work day. It's an 8 hour work day worth of work extra that I do on top of my job. So it's never seemed like um, that feasible to take another however many hours to do another post to put on another blog to attract traffic. So for me, guest posting hasn't been the thing. I will do some of it, but mainly the traffic has come from just people sharing it on their own on Facebook, and especially StumbleUpon has been huge. StumbleUpon is probably my biggest source of traffic. And as the blog has gotten bigger, search engine traffic becomes a bigger portion of it. But yeah, it's mostly social media.
Right. It can certainly be very, very powerful, especially as you alluded to earlier, once you have a base of people, organic growth, right? People that can share it. You give them the tools and resources to do it. Now, you've mentioned Facebook, StumbleUpon. No others come to mind right now. Are there other tools or resources that you've used that have been productive, either in building the audience or building audience engagement?
Honestly, not really. Like the best thing you can do, obviously, is to write content that really moves people and makes them want to share it, and then they take on that task of generating your traffic. Like I tried all kinds of things at the beginning when I didn't have many people sharing my content, like the blog carnivals and stuff like that. I don't even remember most of it. But if you write content that is um, good, like especially good, there's so many blogs out there. It doesn't have to be that great to be exceptional. Um, and you get some readers, people will share it, and that's enough. That's been enough for me.
Right. Well, that's very good. So, yeah, get the people to the site initially and give them great content that they want to share. I think is very, very good advice that we all need to follow.
Yeah, and I will say it's worth creating posts. Sometimes some people call it link bait. It's kind of a cynical thing to say, I think, but creating posts that are geared towards people wanting to share them. Like my biggest posts, and I'm not always happy about this, but my biggest and most popular posts and the posts that have brought the most people to my blog are lists, or big lists. Like, 7 ways to do this, or one of them was 88 important truths I've learned about life was a huge post. That Nietzsche one that we talked about was a big list. People just are very attracted to them because they're easily digestible. A wider variety of people are going to enjoy them than might enjoy like a long discourse about human suffering or whatever. So it's worth including those with the purpose, in mind of people really wanting to share them. Sometimes it means they are a little bit shallower posts, not to say that they're not worthwhile, but I find it's good to have a mix of those kind of posts in there that people will put onto social media because they just lend themselves to that.
Right, maybe I'll put a little bit of a disclaimer on this, which is that, yeah, even though some of them are list posts, they are still more deep and insightful than list posts that you see on other blogs. So,
Yeah, well, that's kind of a positive that there's such a low barrier to entry in blogging that most of it really is crap. Like it's
yeah,
most blogs are not very good. But that there's hundreds of millions, so that means there are still tons of great ones. But you don't have to be all that good to be better than 99% of the others, you know?
right. Now, writing this really great content, yeah, I believe is the most important as well. But are there other ways that you've used to really engage the audience, to turn visitors into followers, to build the relationships we've talked about?
Um, well, like I said, I ask people to comment. When people email me, I give them if they put a lot into the email that they send to me, I don't just say, "Oh, that's cool," and see you later. I engage with people back when they want to engage with me as much as I can. Um, I just I let people join my personal Facebook. Like I don't have a Facebook page. I'm going to start one, but even people I don't know, I say, yeah, join my Facebook, and I get to know people through that way. So I try to be an accessible personality and not just a name and face behind the blog. And I think that keeps people around longer because it's kind of like we're in the age now where you can actually be friends with people without having met them in person. And I don't think it's naive to say that. So I try to be friends with a lot of people, and they stick around.
Right, and it sounds like, just sort of bring all those thoughts together, that it's because Raptitude isn't just a one-way conversation, that people, either through the comments or through Facebook or through email, are able to share their thoughts with you as well. And I forget the name of the post now. It was something like how to get everybody to like you, which was just about listening, right, and hearing other people. And I've probably said the wrong title. I haven't done justice, but
People, is that what it's called? There's one called "The Secret to Connecting with People" that was
that's right. Yeah, about
an old one.
listening to
Really,
what they
one of
really mean.
the ones that, yeah, yeah. Like, and I get the idea of that post was just when someone's speaking to you, as hard as it is, and I'm still not very good at this, but I know it is the secret. It's to let them be the star, to let them say their thing, and it's the way people interact generally. That's kind of a rare opportunity. So when you give that to someone, it really strengthens the relationship between people, even if it's just online.
Right, and I think that same thought, at least when I read the post, it reminded me of How to Make Friends and Influence People, the famous
Oh yeah,
David Carnegie book. A similar thought in
Dale.
there, right? Dale Carnegie, right? Thank you. Yeah, listen listen to people, and it goes a long way, I think.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's why these interviews are about the interviewee, not about certainly not about me. Now, what's more mechanical questions? What's your workspace like? Where do you put in the time writing?
Honestly, it's mostly at my coffee table. I sit on my couch and I just put it on my coffee table, and that's worked for me. I mean, it's probably healthier and smarter to sit at my dinner table and do it, or to get a desk, but um, I find the less intimidating it is to sit down and write, the more likely I am to do it, and the quicker I'll get into it. And once you get into it, it's just you and the words anyway. It doesn't, the environment surrounding you kind of disappears, and it's just about the language and the ideas.
Right, and finding that comfortable place for you. You had said that last year you did some traveling, and I expect well, I know that you were writing during that time as well. Where were you working while you were traveling? Because sometimes it can be hard to find a quiet place, can't it?
Yeah, well, wherever I could, often on a hostel bunk bed is where it was mostly. I would go to coffee shops. Um, Sometimes I'd like go to a beach or something with my laptop. Or it's neat to put yourself, or for me anyway. I certainly didn't mind being in the exotic place on my laptop. Like I was in Thailand in a hammock typing on my laptop. That's fine.
That sounds pretty good.
So if as long as you can in get like as long as people know what you're doing and don't interrupt you, then that's all the workspace I need. You know, a laptop. That's it.
Right, and maybe if you're in one of those loud places, headphones could go a long way too. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, maybe two more questions. One, we talked about a little bit earlier when you mentioned the experiments that you post on the blog on Raptitude. And actually, there's another thing I'd like to talk about at the same time, which is your list, the things that you want to do throughout your life. How did those two sections come about? Why are they included as part of Raptitude?
The experiments. Part of the idea of my blog was always self improvement, and I can't think of a better way than to just try something out for a while and see if it works. Like I had been a fan of Steve Pavlina's blog. It's a huge self improvement blog for anyone who hasn't seen it. And he would do experiments like, well, he did one on polyphasic sleep where he would sleep for like 20 minutes every 4 hours or something like that for 30 days. And I thought that would be cool to try that out and have the accountability of my readership in doing that. Because if I just said to myself, yeah, I'll do this for 30 days, it probably wouldn't last 30 days. So that was just an attractive idea to me right off the bat. The list, I can't honestly, I can't remember what sparked me to make a serious life list. Like I'd make bucket lists, several through my whole life, and I don't know where most of them are now. And I think that's most of them end up just disappearing somewhere because we just kind of treat them like a wish list and not really like the way you want to spend your life. So I forget what it was that inspired me to take it more seriously, but I sat down and wrote a list of what I really did want to do before I died, and I am working through it. It's I don't know how I lived without it because I wondered what was I up to, you know. But yeah, it's a permanent fixture now.
Right, and I think especially for us procrastinators, it's a good thing to have that list to guide us through life and
Yeah, yeah.
keep us
What am I
going.
really doing? What am I doing with my life? And that the idea was to make a list that is the answer to that question.
Right, and actually one of the resources that I'll post along with this video is that as well as your list, you posted a guide so that others can create their own, which I think is very useful and further engage in the readers. Now, with both of these sections, the experiment and the list, do you find that other people are not just reading them but are participating as well? That some of the readers have started doing experiments of their own, or that have started making these lists and sticking to them? Do you hear back from them?
Yeah, yeah, I do. Often I'll get emails from people who have done the experiments I had. They said, "That's I've had enough of procrastination too. I'm going to do that experiment, or I'm going to go vegan for 30 days, or I'm going to meditate every day for 30 days, or something like that." So people do join in, and some of them I don't hear back from, but some of them I do. I've had a lot of people in that. I think the comment section of the my list will link to their blogs where they've made their own list. So people often write me and say, "Yeah, you've inspired me to do this," and some of them even write back quite a time later and say, "Yeah, I actually went to France. I actually did this and that, and it feels good," you know.
That's pretty cool. It'd be pretty rewarding to know that you're influencing people and helping them improve their lives. The experiments then, and continuing with how they've benefited you, self-improvement. You just talked about the vegan experiment. You are a vegan now, correct?
Yeah.
Is it that experiment, or is there another one that has been the biggest change for you?
That one's probably the biggest change. It's changed how I think about the world and obviously how I eat and things that I buy and how I think about what I buy and what it creates in the world. That's a big one. I did an experiment on no caffeine or alcohol for 30 days, and I was surprised at how big a change that made. Like I was surprised how prominent those substances were in my life, and they're back, but not. It's not like they were. I have a very different relationship to them now. Uh, some of the other ones, some of them kind of fell apart. Like it's about a 50-50 batting average for those experiments, but those two were the ones that left the biggest lasting change for me. Yeah.
Right, and 50-50 sounds okay to me because they are, of course, called experiments for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, find out what works for you. So it's very, very cool, and I would encourage the viewers to go check it out because, yeah, maybe they don't need to try the same ones. Maybe it doesn't need about being a vegan or some of the others that you've tried. But yeah, people experimenting with their own life, I think, can lead to a lot of self improvement. Maybe
Yeah.
two last quick questions then, and maybe it's really just one. So I'll say them together. So something you wish someone had told you when you first started blogging, and then the other half is what's one thing people can do this afternoon to get ahead with their blog?
Well, I'll answer the second one first because the answer is more obvious to me than the other one. Join a little group of bloggers. If you're starting
Right.
at blogging, like even I would extend that advice to taking on anything new is find other people who are also new at it that that will hold you accountable and that you can ask questions of and bounce things off of. And like I can't think of like I say, I don't know if my blog would exist today without that. As for the other question, something I wish other people would have told me, there's probably nothing that I needed to be told that I wasn't told. There are just things that I was told and I didn't really listen to.
Okay.
Is to start, if you ever intend to monetize your blog, to start an email list early. Because I'm just thinking about monetizing now, 2.5 years down the road, and it would be great if I had an email list with thousands of readers, and I could easily have had that by now, but it's kind of starting from scratch now. So that's the one piece of advice I did hear right off the bat, but didn't take. So I would advise people to not do it the way I did.
Right. So for everybody listening now, go ahead and start that email list. I guess even if they don't have a lot of traffic right now, 1 becomes 2, becomes 3, becomes 10, becomes 100, and eventually the thousands that you mentioned. So, yeah, I think very useful advice. All right, David, we've come up to the end of our interview. I'm really, really glad we did it, though, because I think a lot of useful advice for me and for the viewers as well. I'm certainly going to keep following Raptitude, so maybe I'll be in touch with you through the comments or email as well. And
Oh, yeah.
I'll let you know when this goes live.
I know.
All right. Thanks so much, David. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, Michael.
Bye.